Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. As usual, I'm your host, Cody, and today we're starting a brand new theme for a brand new month. It is July of 2020 still. And we're going to do... So this is basically comedies from when I was growing up. These are all from the early to mid-'80s. Technically, this is from 79. So it doesn't really count as an 80s movie, but I watched in the 80s, so that's why it's when I was growing up. But anyways, it started off as going to be a Carl Reiner month, but I think that's unfair to do because I couldn't figure out 4 Carl Reiner directed movies that I wanted to do. I only figured out 3, and then I added Ocean's 11, which isn't direct, he's just in. So I was like, that doesn't really work out for me. And I wouldn't say Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid was one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite ones from him, but that's where it went astray. So I decided to change up a little bit. I know I said I was going to do some about books, but I'm planning it out, and I'm trying to figure out the whole Harry Potter thing, if I'm going to do 1 month per book, and then break it up into 4 parts. Because I have to look at the chapters and then talk about which chapters each week for that month, whatever. I'm figuring it out. May start next month. May wait till I finish all the books and then rewatch all the movies. I just started Half-Blood Prince, so I'm almost there, but we'll figure that out in a minute. So I was going to do books. I didn't have enough of anything to bring up for 4 weeks of books that I can think of theme-wise. So I got on the whole Carl Reiner thing because he just passed away. And I was like, I'm going to do Carl Reiner movies. And then I couldn't really decide on them. So then I was like, oh, wait, comedies from when I was growing up. So then I thought of 4 comedy movies that I watched when I was growing up. The Jerk being one of them with Steve Martin. Then we have Brewster's Millions, Police Academy, and History of the World Part 1. And I'll talk about those this month. So that is going to be awesome comedies from my childhood is what I'm calling these ones. And the first week, this week, today, the episode you're listening to right now, is about The Jerk. Directed by Carl Reiner, written by Steve Martin. Carl, I'm going to butcher this last name like I butcher most last names. Gottlieb? I'm not too sure. And Michael Eliza. Elias? Might be Elias. Anyways, Steve Martin's the big important there. Carl Reiner, unfortunately, has just passed away at the recording of this, the 29th of June, at the ripe old age of 98, so dude had quite a long time. He is an amazing dude. He has been working forever. So far back, I mean, his first stuff was 1950? Yeah, 1950. I was like, oof. Your Show of Shows. He played himself, a regular performer. It was a variety show back in the 1950, 1954 it ran. He worked with Sid Caesar on Caesar's Hour between 54 and 57, and then went on to do the Sid Caesar Show, where he played Woody Woodward, another variety series, and then he was on Dick Van Dyke Show from 1961 to 1966. He played Alan Brady, and then had other stuff he did movie-wise, acting-wise in movies. 1959, he was in Happy Anniversary, The Gazebo, Gidget Goes Hawaiian, different things like that. It's a mad world. But his directing-wise, the big ones that I was thinking of, obviously The Jerk he directed. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid was going to be my other one. The Man with Two Brains, Summer Rental, Summer School. He did Fatal Instinct, which is crazy to think he did all these comedies and then that one. And then something called That Old Feeling, which I don't think I've ever seen. But movie wise, as actors, as an actor, he's been, like I said, he's been in a bunch of things. Some of the bigger ones, obviously, he played himself in The Jerk, which is pretty hilarious. The character's name, by the way, was Carl Reiner, the celebrity. Most notably, you would recognize him from things like Ocean's 11. He played Saul Bloom. He was in Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, and made a cameo in a deleted scene in Ocean's 8, which I never saw, so it doesn't matter. And then he did the voice in Toy Story 4 of Carl Rhinoceros, which is hilarious that they named him that. But anyways, that's Carl Reiner, dearly beloved and recently passed Carl Reiner. So that's Carl Reiner. Starring in the movie, we have in the lead is Steve Martin. He plays Nevin R. Johnson, who he also made a cameo or had another role in it as the cat juggler. But he was under his alias of Pig Eye Jackson, which is pretty funny, and you can tell it's him. So Steve Martin plays Nevin R. Johnson. We have Bernadette Peters, who plays Marie Kimball Johnson. We have M. Emmett Walsh playing Madman, who never gets another name later on, which is pretty funny. You have Jackie Mason, who plays Harry Hartunian, which, if you don't know who Jackie Mason is, Jackie Mason's been in a lot of things. The two things that stick out to me always is his small role in this as Harry Hartunian, but also his role in Caddyshack 2. I know that sounds weird, but Caddyshack 2 was one of these things that I watched so many times. It's ridiculous. The best part is he plays Jack Hartunian, which is hilarious to me. But he'll be coming up again because he's in History of the World Part 1 as well. So in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks from now, I'll be talking about that again, and I'll bring him up then. I'm not going to bring up everyone that's in History of the World Part 1 because it's an ensemble cast of thousands of people, but he plays Jew number 1, which is pretty funny. But that's Jackie Mason. I just think it's funny that he plays Harry Hartunian in The Jerk, and he plays Jack Hartunian in Caddyshack 2. Just makes me laugh because they're the same last name, and they're both ridiculous last names. I skipped over M. Emmett Walsh. M. Emmett Walsh, you could... he's been in a lot of things. Whenever I see him, I always think of this, of The Jerk, because of his role in it. He shows up twice in the movie. Probably, let's see, what would people know? Oh, he plays Coach Turnbull in Back to School, which is a really good one. He plays the dad in Harry and Henderson's. He plays the grandfather, I should say. That's a good one. More, I mean, say more recently. He's still acting. He's, well, he was in Knives Out just last year. He was in the Scorpion King 4. Did not know that. I don't know if anyone did really. Can't think of. Poor White Trash. Me and Will. Well, he played Coleman in Wild Wild West. My buddy Mike's favorite Western movie. He's been in so many movies, and you see him like, oh, that guy. And TV shows, he's been in a lot of different TV shows, 1s and 2s, still doing stuff. He was in one episode of the Righteous Gemstones on HBO last year. Apparently he's an episode of Sneaky Pete, 7 of them. Trying to think of what else. A lot of just a couple episodes of a bunch of stuff. Nothing long term that I know of. A couple TV movies. Yeah. Anyways, that's Emmett Walsh. Look him up; you'll recognize him. I also skipped over Bernadette Peters. Bernadette Peters has been in a bunch of movies, in TV shows. Movie wise, probably. I can't even imagine what you'd know her from. Anybody would know her from if you don't. If you see her, like, oh, I think I know that lady. Oh, that's right. She was in Mozart in the Jungle. I forgot about that. It's a big. She was in 35 episodes of that. She's been on Law and Order. Who hasn't been? So many things. I can't think of one big movie to say, hey, it's her, and you'd be like, oh yeah, her. So I'm just gonna say, look up Bernadette Peters. That's all I can say. Dick O'Neill, who in his movie his character name is Dick, or the actor's name is Dick O'Neill. His character's name is Frosty. He runs the circus that traveling circus that Nevin sort of accidentally joins up in. But he's been in a lot of stuff. He played Santa Claus on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air way back in 1994. Another dude, you see him and you're like, oh, I've seen this guy in a bunch of stuff, and you have, because he's been in a bunch of stuff. But it's hard to like pinpoint one and be like, that one. And you're like, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's Dick O'Neill. He was in like a bunch of stuff. Mosquito Coast, She's Out of Control, Loose Cannons, Buddy Holly story. I think that's all the ones I could really think of. You may know him from, but yeah, that's him. Then you have Mabel King. Mabel King plays Mother, which is a weird character name, but she plays Nevin R. Johnson's mother in the movie, which I'll get to in a minute, and I'll talk. I'm not going to go over the whole movie. I'm just going to go over a couple things in it. So Mabel King, I don't know what you'd say the most notable thing you would know her from. Well, the most notable thing is What's Happening, where she played Ma in it. Mama, right? Yeah, she played Mabel Mama Thomas in What's Happening. That's probably the biggest thing you would know her from. One of my favorite ones is she plays grandmama in grandma in Scrooge, one of my favorite Christmas movies. I forgot So there's a. I'll get to that in a minute. I'll come back to that. I was gonna talk about something, but I'll talk about it in a minute. But for Mabel King, she's been in a lot of things. She was in The Wiz. She played Evelyn in that. If you've never seen the reimagining of The Wizard of Oz with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross and what's his name? I can't think of the guy's name right now. Oh my goodness, he plays Ted Ross. Good God, he plays the Cowardly Lion, and Richard Pryor plays the Wiz or Herman Smith. Nipsey Russell is the Tin Man. It's a great movie. I used to watch it all the time. And then I didn't watch the remake they made on ABC or whatever it was. I never watched that one. But anyways, she plays Evelyn in that movie. And she's amazing in that movie, and she's amazing in What's Happening. She was in Amazing Stories. I didn't know she was in an episode of Amazing Stories. There's a lot of people in Amazing Stories because, well, it ran for a while. She was in an episode of The Jeffersons. But yeah, that's Mabel King, everybody. Then last up is Richard Ward, who plays Father. He is not who I thought he was. I kept thinking he was somebody else. Or not somebody else. I kept thinking he was in another movie that I thought he was in, but he's not actually in that movie. Because I was thinking he played the dad in what is that other movie that I was thinking of earlier? I actually can't remember what it was. I made a note and then I realized it wasn't him, and I was like, nope, not him. And I was like, I can't remember what it was that I looked at earlier, and I thought it was him. It doesn't matter. Oh well. But Richard Ward plays Nevin's father in this. So the premise of this movie is Nevin R. Johnson is a white adopted son of a black sharecroppers who grows to adulthood naively unaware of his obvious adoption. He believes he's just hasn't turned that color yet, as he says in the movie. That shade, I believe, actually says. Anyways, so he is down on his luck when the movie first starts, and he's seemingly homeless, and he starts talking to the camera because it's like someone's recording him talking, and he tells his life story of how he grew up and how he got to where he was, and it's basically all because imagine Forrest Gump, right? Okay, Forrest Gump did all these things right. Some of the things he didn't know he was doing right, but he was always trying his best. Nevin R. Johnson, very similar in ways, but he keeps fucking shit up and eventually does well, but then doesn't do well, and then loses everything. So basically, whole story revolves around him growing up in an adopted family, realizing that he's white. His mom then tells him he's adopted. Here's this song play on the radio one night and decides that's his calling and decides to leave for St. Louis. Well, when he goes there, he on his way there, he makes a new dog friend named Shithead, originally called Lifesaver, but he was a shithead, so they named him Shithead, and then he stayed with him for a long time, forever, really. He had him at the end. And then he gets a job at Hartunian's gas station. Hartunian, of course, played by Jackie Mason. He then becomes the unwitting target of a madman, played by M. Emmett Walsh, who then drives him off by shooting at him terribly. And then he tries to hide in the ticket booth of a traveling circus. Fair, I should really say not circus, but fair. Gets a job there as the weight guesser. Gets in a romantic relationship with the stunt lady. Then, on one of his many jobs, he's the train conductor of the toy train that drives kids around the track. He then meets Marie Kimball, his soon-to-be wife, played by Bernadette Peters. They fall madly in love, but she can't stay with him because she's supposed to find a man that is going to be rich and famous or whatever, and then he becomes rich and famous because he accidentally invented a thing called the OptiGrab, which is a handle to go on the front of your glasses. So when you're pulling your glasses off, you don't stretch them and bend them out of shape. You use this to pull them straight off your face, and it has a little nose rest thing that helps them from sliding off your face. He makes millions of dollars, and then he gets sued for $10 million by 10 million people, or 900, sorry, not 10 million people, it's 999, so 999,999 people, including Carl Reiner. And when he loses it, he then has to pay each of them $1.09, which then makes him go bankrupt. He then gets depressed. Marie leaves him because he's turned into this dude that's not the one she fell in love with, and she's not really into the materials in the materialistic world anymore. She just wants the Nevin she fell in love with, the naive man child. And then he then goes and becomes homeless, and that's where you catch back up from the beginning. And it turns out that throughout the movie, he was sending what little money he could back to his parents back home, and his dad was investing that into different stocks and they became rich. And they come and find him along with Marie, who has gone to them and pleading that they need him. And yeah, so forth. So what makes this movie funny? I know that doesn't sound hilarious, but Nevin is an idiot. He's very naive. He thinks he knows things when he doesn't know things. He again makes a lot of mistakes. Always kind of falls into the betterment for a little bit, and of course then he gets shafted by being part of the OptiGrab thing, because his business partner that brought him into it kind of screws him over, because he claims that the OptiGrab was all him, and so Carl Reiner and the other 999,998 people sue directly him for all he's worth, and he takes the blame for it. What is his partner's name? Fox? Stan Fox? Bill Macy plays Stan Fox. And then so he loses everything, loses Marie, loses his livelihood, loses shithead, has only an ashtray, a paddle game, a lamp, a chair. I think that's all he takes with him. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe that's all he takes with him. And then he trades that in for a thermos, which then plays back to a song that he wrote for Marie when he was about to propose to her, about buying her a thermos. And it's kind of what breaks him again. And then that's it. Yeah, that's The Jerk, everybody. Highly recommend you watch it. If you have Stars and it was on there, I have it on iTunes, or I bought it on iTunes to watch it, because for some reason I couldn't watch it on Stars, even though I have Stars. It said it wasn't available. I don't know if that's doesn't matter. I couldn't watch it on there, so I bought it on iTunes. It was only like $12 or something, so it's something I'm playing. I actually have it on DVD somewhere, but I was not going to watch it on disc, let alone DVD. But now I have it on iTunes, and it looked great, and it sounded great, and it was fun. I love the movie. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, that's it for this week's episode, everybody. So tune in next week, and the week after, and the week after that for the following movies. Next week will be Brewster's Millions, another one of my favorites. That's why it's on here. Comedies from when I was growing up. Then we have Police Academy, which is an all-time classic of everybody's. And then, last but not least, is one of the movies I watched the most when I was younger, especially with my brother, which is Mel Brooks's The History of the World Part 1. And I will tell you a story about that, if I remember correctly, on there. If I remember again to tell you on that episode, which is super funny and super dated for the people who know what I'm going to be talking about when I talk about it. Anyhow, that's it for this week's episode, everybody. Again, I am Cody, your host, and as they usually say at the end of all these episodes, let's be awesome.